There's a story the media has been telling for the last 2 decades, and most people still believe it. The story goes like this. One country is quietly taking over the world economy, and it's only a matter of time before it replaces the current global superpower. For a long time, that story felt completely believable. The numbers backed it up. The momentum was real. But here's what's wild. That story is now completely outdated because the data has shifted, the experts have shifted, and what we're actually watching right now isn't a rise. It's a collapse in slow motion. And the reason most people haven't caught up yet is because the news cycle moves fast, but economic reality moves slow. Today, we're breaking down exactly why one of the world's most powerful economies is quietly unraveling and why the timing of everything happening right now makes this moment unlike anything we've seen before. Let's talk about the debt first, because this is where most people get it completely wrong. If you've ever looked up the official numbers, you'll see a debt to GDP ratio that looks manageable. Looks fine even, but those numbers are designed to mislead. The real debt isn't sitting in the federal balance sheet. It's buried in regional government obligations, in the books of state-owned enterprises, in infrastructure loans that will never get paid back. When you add all of that together, the actual debt burden is at minimum 3 times worse than what the official figures show. And unlike countries that have reserve currency status, where the whole world essentially agrees to hold your currency and absorb your debt risk, this country has no such luxury. Nobody is rushing to park their savings in this currency. That removes one of the biggest safety nets a heavily indebted nation can have. But here's the critical thing to understand. The debt didn't cause the underlying crisis. The debt is the response to the underlying crisis. They borrowed massively to paper over the real problems. And since those real problems never got fixed, now they have the original issues plus a mountain of debt sitting on top. So what's the actual root problem? Demographics. Population collapse. This is the silent killer that doesn't make headlines but will reshape everything. The official population today sits somewhere around 1.4 billion people. By the end of this century, projections, and again, the official projections are probably too optimistic, suggest that number could fall to somewhere between 500 and 600 million. That's not a dip. That's a structural unraveling. When a country's population cuts by more than half, you end up with a society where the number of retired, elderly, and dependent people overwhelms the number of working age people who can actually generate economic output. Every worker ends up carrying 2 or 3 people on their back. That's not sustainable. That's a slow motion economic implosion. And the reason this happened is almost poetic in its tragic irony. Decades ago, the government was terrified of too many people. So they implemented a strict one-child policy. For a generation, families were legally prohibited from having more than 1 child. They assumed overpopulation was the existential threat. They were wrong. Population naturally stabilizes. They overcorrected. And now they've built an entire culture around small families, a generation that grew up as only children, who don't know what a large family even feels like, and who, in many cases, don't want children at all. Because when you look around and things feel like they're getting harder, not easier, the last thing you want to do is bring another person into that reality. The policy is gone. The culture it created is not, and you can't fix a demographic crisis with a government announcement. Now, let's connect this to why the economic rise happened in the first place, because this is the part that makes the decline feel so inevitable in hindsight. The growth miracle of the last few decades wasn't magic. It was a formula. A massive and growing population willing to work for extremely low wages, combined with aggressive, debt-fueled investment in industrial infrastructure. That combination allowed this country to become the manufacturing floor of the entire global economy. When you can produce goods at a fraction of the cost of any competitor, you dominate trade. Simple math. But both of those engines are now running in reverse. The population is shrinking. Wages have risen. And here's something that almost nobody talks about when you factor in all costs today, including energy. It is now cheaper in many cases to manufacture in the United States, one of the most expensive labor markets on earth, than it is to manufacture there. The structural cost advantage is gone. And when your entire economic identity was built on that advantage, losing it is an existential problem. Speaking of energy, this is a vulnerability that's getting brutally exposed right now. This country has a massive industrial economy that runs on imported energy. Domestic energy production is nowhere near enough to power the machine. That means they are permanently exposed to global energy price shocks in a way that most other major economies simply are not. When shipping routes get disrupted, when geopolitical tensions close off key transit corridors, when supply chains get hit, this country feels it faster and harder than almost anyone else. Energy prices spike, production costs spike, and suddenly industries that were barely profitable become deeply unprofitable. That's not a theoretical problem. That is happening right now. And on top of that, tariffs and trade tensions are cutting into the demand side of the equation. At the exact same moment, the supply side is getting hammered by energy costs, shrinking revenue, rising costs, a mountain of debt, a collapsing workforce. These trends are not happening in sequence. They are happening simultaneously. And that's what makes this moment so different from any previous slowdown. Let's talk about the real estate situation, because this is probably the most visible sign of what's gone wrong. Across this country, there are entire cities, actual skylines of skyscrapers that are completely empty, built on the assumption that a growing population would fill them. But the population isn't growing, so they sit there, ghost cities. Investments that will never pay off. And the reason this bubble inflated so massively comes down to a policy decision about where citizens were allowed to invest their money. With limited access to international markets and deep distrust of domestic stock markets, ordinary people funneled their savings into real estate, often pooling money in groups just to afford a single unit. Prices went up because more people were buying, which attracted more buyers, which pushed prices higher. Classic Ponzi dynamics. But now the underlying demand is gone. And everyone's savings are locked in assets that are worth less than what they paid, that they can't easily sell, that generate no income. The personal wealth of an entire society evaporated. Not on paper. In reality. Now here's the geopolitical dimension, because this is where things get genuinely dangerous. When powerful countries decline, history tells us they rarely go quietly. There's almost always a moment of desperation, a military or territorial gamble designed to reverse the trajectory, or at least project strength. We saw this pattern play out recently with Russia. 5 years ago, Russia still occupied a certain mental space in the global conversation. Today, after a disastrous war, that image has been shredded. Decline accelerated, reputation destroyed, economic isolation locked in. The same risk exists here. And there's one target that analysts keep coming back to when they think through what a desperate military move might look like, not the obvious one that gets all the headlines, but a resource-rich, sparsely defended region to the north. Taking that territory would theoretically solve multiple problems at once: energy independence, open land for resettlement, raw materials to relieve the debt burden. Whether that happens is genuinely unknowable. But the incentive structure points in that direction. And when you combine declining power, domestic instability pressure, and a government whose legitimacy depends on delivering economic results, you have a volatile combination. Here's the bottom line. Every individual factor in this story, the debt, the demographics, the real estate collapse, the lost manufacturing edge, the energy dependence, the geopolitical pressure, each one of these on its own would be a serious, serious problem. Nations have been destabilized by less, but this country isn't facing one of these. It's facing all of them, stacked on top of each other, compounding each other, accelerating each other, all at the same time. And there are no easy levers left to pull. Immigration, which is the traditional solution to demographic collapse, is off the table for political reasons. Debt-fueled stimulus is hitting a ceiling. Trade relationships are fracturing. Energy supply chains are under pressure. The experts who were most skeptical about this country's trajectory might still be underestimating how fast this can move, because economic momentum in both directions has a way of surprising everyone. What do you think? Is this decline already locked in, or is there a path out that we're not seeing? Let me know in the comments.